Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're finally going to be releasing 5 rental teams that you can use on the newly started Regulation D ladder. So these are all teams that have been, tested extensively because, viewers have requested tier 3 subs to the channel, and we've done a little bit of team building since. And then as a result, some of them have brought these teams into, tours and have done relatively well with them. So I know they've been proven. And just even on the showdown ladder, they've gotten some good results overall. Like everything was past 1500. So I figured let's just take some of these and just make them into rentals, so this way we can get you guys started and give you guys some ideas, even just in case you want to try and make your own kind of squads. But at the very least, I tried to give 5 teams that what I feel represent the current format at the moment, some new with a little bit of old, of course, which is the idea with Regulation D. So without wasting any further time, let's just go straight into the first rental team. All right, so with the first rental team, we're gonna go relatively standard here. Of course, this is the patented, Dragonite Chien-Pao combination with Tornadus and a bunch of hyper offensive combinations, right? So of course, the Dragonite is gonna be a choice band set here, and with Tornadus, again, you have a lot of speed control with Tailwind. Bleak Windstorm is the new move, of course, that it gets this generation. Able to hit multi-targets and, of course, get a chance at, reducing speed. Taunt and Protect. Protect is something that sometimes you don't find on Tornadus, so you can really catch people off guard on the ladder, right? Of course, in open team sheet, that doesn't matter because they're going to see it. But, Taunt is really good at denying, stuff like Amoonguss, stuff like Goodra, maybe even the Cresselia. Trying to set up a trick room, if they don't have a mental herb for that matter. So I always feel like Taunt Tornadus is relatively good on teams like this. It slows them down and forces them to reposition, right? The Terra Ghost Covert Cloak combination, again, sometimes I get questions on that. And the idea is this, yes, one of them will stop fake out, but then you still want to prevent the Dragonite E-Speed shenanigans, especially when it's paired with Chien-Pao. And we'll take a look at the EV spreads in a second, but that's the idea behind, Terra Ghost and as well as the Covert Cloak combination, right? Then the Urshifu Rapid Strike, again, something that does relatively well with, speed control. You go through Protect, you crit every time with Surging Strikes. It's a really, really strong Pokemon on these teams. Does even more damage with the Chien-Pao, just like the Dragonite. Chien-Pao here, again, with the Focus Sash here, Ice Spinner, Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, you're able to ignore some of those defense boosts that the Hisuian Goodra might go for. So that's one play for that. And then, of course, Protect is just always consistent. The Heatran over here, again, also makes sense on some teams like this. And again, with the Heatran, it's a leftover set with, if you look at the Terra option, it's not Terra Grass, it's actually Terra Bug with Terra Blast. This is for the mirror, right? Because a lot of Heatrans right now, you're going to see them go for Terra Grass. And then, you can't really click a fire move against a Grass Heatran because of Flash Fire. So you need some way out of that. And I felt like Terra Bug was a good play around that. There's been many cases where this actually helps a lot. So I figured let's just throw this on here. Let's change the Terra Grass to Terra Blast. So this way, you, the viewer, can also have that option as well. Then the Fluttermane is a very standard set with Booster Energy. It's a substitute set. This is for, Trick Room stuff. Sometimes you might see an Amoonguss in place of the Heatran on teams like this just to give an out, for the Trick Room matchup. But I felt like, what? Let's just set up Substitute, alternate Protects, and then we stall out all 4 turns of Trick Room, and then that's our way around it, right? Sometimes you'll see that done with Heatran as well, just because it's a lot bulkier than the Fluttermane, right? So it's able to keep the sub up a little bit longer. But in this case, I went a different direction and decided to put the sub on the Fluttermane, which is still also very, very good. But overall, again, you have 2 strong special attackers, another special attacker that can also deal some damage, but more or less support, and 3 very, very strong physical attackers. This is the very standard hyper offensive team that you're going to see in Regulation D ladder. So anytime you're trying to do team building, you have to answer some of these teams because you're going to see them a lot. You'll see them in some sort of variation, whether they have the same core 4 or same core 5. It may not even be this 6, but I just wanted to at least release one that was relatively standard and consistent that will, get you guys going for the Regulation D ladder. All right, so without further ado, let's go into the Pokepaste and let's see how we did our spreads. Okay, so now we're here in the Pokepaste for this team, and basically Chien-Pao is relatively standard. It's a standard, 252, 252 set. And then the Tornadus, if you look, it's a relatively bulky set, right? The speed there just gets it to 168. It allows you to outspeed based on hundreds, something like a Chi-Yu or, you know, a max speed Zapdos, for example. And then from there, that bulk is meant to survive the Dragonite E-Speed, Choice Band, Adamant 252 without Qianpao on the field, okay? I repeat, without the Qianpao. With it, you die, okay? But without it, you have a chance to live. The 164 HP investment optimizes to 175. You know, that's a very trademark VGC number, and in the HP stat, it can also optimize against Sand Chip. And then from there, I just dumped the rest into like defense to make sure I get the calc that I need. And in 68, special attack was basically actually your leftover, you know, EVs. Just dump some into some damage, right? The Urshifu 44 HP and the defense that actually allows you to live the Dragonite E-Speed. So that's always really, really nice. And then from there, I went for an Adamant set with Mystic Water because the sash is on the Qianpao. So let's do a little bit more damage with our Urshifu is the idea. And then 180 speed EVs gets it to 139. You know, this is going to allow it to outspeed Regieleki under Tailwind if you run into that. And then from there, the Adamant 156 gets it to the second EV bump, the second jump. And again, I always ask this in every single video. If you don't know what EV bumps are, comment in the video below and ask what are EV bumps if you don't know what they are. Because if you're trying to play competitive Pokemon, you got to know what these are. It's one of the building blocks, the foundations of trying to create an EV spread. Okay, but anyway, then after that, the rest just went into special defense. Might as well. You know, Urshifu is relatively bulky physically. So I just dumped the rest into special defense just to get a little bit of oomph in that special defense bulk. The Heatran. Again, the Heatran is optimized for the leftovers, hitting that 192 HP mark. I hit the second bump in the modest nature, you know, with 156 investment. The Fluttermane here is also optimized for substitute. Again, 84 and 100. Also, might I add, you know, just when you try to go 252, 252 Fluttermane, sometimes that's not efficient, especially if you don't have a sash, because you just get rolled by the Qianpao Sucker Punch, right? I believe it's a 62% chance to KO the Fluttermane, which is a Sucker Punch. So no bulk Fluttermane is just not optimal. You always want to have a little bit of physical bulk on your Fluttermane. And that's what this is. You can survive the Sucker Punch and you can also live the Ice Spinner if it comes down to it. And then at the same time, you know, it helps to have a little bit of HP to get you some substitutes rolling, right? I believe you can do 4 substitutes with this investment. And then from there, the second bump went into modest nature, 116 investment, and it's just a very, very standard Fluttermane set that you'll expect it to see. All right. So then after that, it's just Dragonite, Adamant 252. I took a little bit away from its HP. I broke my optimization rule and just put a little bit more into speed, just to outspeed, like, you know, other Dragonites, for example. But overall, again, it's just a very, very hard-hitting Dragonite. Nothing else really needs to be said about it. But yeah, that's pretty much rental team number 1. Let's move into the second rental. All right, this one is Hisuian Goodra. So basically, this is a team that I gave to someone and they took it to a local tour, an in-person local, and they won the whole thing with it, which is very, very, you know, cool, I would say. So I figured, you know what, might as well just make a team out of it, you know, since it did have a result already. So the idea here with the Hisuian Goodra is I really wanted to build around that and Grimmsnarl, because I feel like the Goodra gets hard to break once you're able to set up screens, right? Now, you do have to play around Taunt, right? Of course, you know, because then they can just taunt your shelter, you know. And by the way, you're at the Acid Armor supporters, right? I feel like, you know, you guys need to relax. It's the same thing. You don't need to be clicking these moves a bunch of times, right? Once you get to +4, +6, that's it. You don't need to click it anymore. So, you know, for the argument that the Acid Armor is, you know, has more PP, that's irrelevant. All right, you know, but go ahead and fight me in the comments if you feel very, very strongly about Acid Armor. Anyway, that being said, again, the screens makes the entire team bulky, because look at our team. It's very, very bulky with maybe just the Urshifu, not as bulky as some of these other options. But, you know, if you're just able to set up your shelters and then just keep clicking body presses and heavy slams, the Goodra doesn't really care about Intimidate, right? Terra Flying is also for the ground shenanigans from something like a Landorus or a Heatran Earth Power. So that's why I put it there. I know some people like Terra Water Goodra, which is also relatively fine. That's fine too. But also the Sap Sipper rather than the Shell Armor. The whole idea with the Sap Sipper is, you know, if I click Trick Room and there's an Amoonguss, I have 3 immunity, actually almost 4 immunities to it, right? Because then I can just swap in the Goodra and take that Spore, and then, you know, the Amoonguss is in a little bit of trouble, right? Then from here, Urshifu Rillaboom is always a very, very strong combination. The fact that you can click Fake Out and click Surging Strikes, you know, just forces the opponent out of position. You can't protect, otherwise it's basically free damage. So sometimes what I've been able to do against some of these Dragonite Chien-Pao leads is basically just force the Chien-Pao to protect or switch out, right? Because then it's just free damage, and then the Dragonite just doesn't do as much damage, you know, even though it does go for like Terra normal E-speed, because then from there, you can just click close combat, you know, and, you know, basically the Terra actually just does it in, right? And then from there, once you force the Chien-Pao out, then the, you know, stuff like Cresselia is just able to set up Trick Room in the end game, right? As well as the Goodra. So other than that, again, you know, with the speaking of the Cresselia, you also have the Cresselia Ursaluna combination, right? Behind screens, both Cresselia and Ursaluna are also very hard to break. I don't think you bring both into, you know, your games. Where by both I mean Cresselia and Grimmsnarl. Sometimes you can, but very often or not, you bring one or the other. Okay, and the whole idea with this Cresselia is also I made it a little bit more offensive. It's a modest natured one, and it has Calm Mind. So now you have another endgame potential where like either you have Goodra setting up or you have Cresselia setting up. And if you look at our Goodra, it has Life Dew. So sometimes what we can do is get the Cresselia to spam Calm Binds till the cows come home and keep clicking Life Dew and heal it up. And so this way the Cresselia becomes a little bit hard to break. And then on the flip side, we can have the Goodra set up the shelter combinations and have Cresselia click Lunar Blessing. So this way the Goodra also gets relatively hard to break. But that's the idea. And then, you know, they can both become monsters if you allow them to set up. This is why Fake Out and Screens are important on a team like this. And then Ursaluna over here. Originally there was like, I put Fire Punch here instead of Shadow Claw just to be able to like hit Amoonguss, but then I just realized you just chip it enough and then click Facade and then it dies anyway, and you can't really click Spore on it. So I just put Shadow Claw there just to be able to snipe some Fluttermanes, because sometimes the Fluttermane can give the Cresselia, Goodra, and Urshifu a little bit of trouble. So just to be able to snipe that and put pressure is relatively fine, right? And then the Rillaboom with, you know, U-turn, again, just gives you good positioning, allows you to pivot in and out, relatively important. And speaking of pivoting and positioning, Grimmsnarl with Parting Shot is a godsend on a team like this, just because, again, you know, pivoting and positioning, weakening the opponent. So this way, they're doing less damage, allowing you to set up in their face, right? So that's the whole idea with Parting Shot on teams like this, along with screens. You know, it's a very, very bulky team. It plays a little bit passive, but if you're able to get, you know, good positioning and able to set up your Mons, then the opponent can't really break you, and it just gets a little bit annoying for them, right? The longer the game goes, the more that favors you, right? So let's go into the EV spreads here. Okay, so now, well, you know, just starting with the Grimmsnarl, it's a very, very standard set, very cookie cutter that you'll find on every single Pikalytic spread online. You know, you're just hitting the bump in the Careful Nature, and then the rest just goes into HP and defense. 1 point in attack and speed. You know, you don't really need that much there. I just put 1 more point in speed just to outspeed like other Grimmsnarls, but you know, it's just like leftover EVs at that point. The Hisuian Goodra, the Impus Nature, again, that's getting the defense boost, so this way I can get a little bit more bang for my buck with the body press. Of course, I hit the bump in the defense. Then leftovers is really, really good recovery. Of course, you know, just go max HP, dump the rest in, you know, special defense. There's only 20 EVs left, so yeah. The Rillaboom, again, 132 investment in HP puts it to 192. Which is optimal for the grassy terrain recovery. You get a perfect 12 per turn, right? Because it's 1/16 of your max HP. I went to the third bump in the Adamant Nature, 196 investment. And then I put a little speed, you know, just to potentially like outspeed other Dragonites that are a little bit slower, you know, just so that you can knock off that, you know, choice band. But overall, it's just also there to just, you know, outspeed certain threats. There are other 112 Pokemon that, you know, want to go for that speed tier. But, you know, I just made sure that it had an even number in the special defense with the Assault Vest, and then the leftovers just went into defense. And that's really all I did with the Rillaboom there. The Urshifu is a Sachet this time. It's not a bulky Mystic Water set. So, you know, just go 252, 252 there. The Cresselia here, you see it's a lot of modest nature. You know, it has an investment here. Yeah, we hit the bump there in the 196 investment. And again, I just wanted to deal like a little bit more damage on the crest. I didn't feel like it was worth going like 36 or 116. I feel like, you know, you want to deal a little bit more. So we just went to like the third benchmark there. And then I took a little bit away from its bulk, obviously, but that's because, you know, sometimes you have the Grimmsnarl here to alleviate some of that lack of bulk that you have on this crest. And crest is already just like bulky enough as it is. But Moonblast is really good against like other Ursh, other Chien-Pao. Terra Fairy, of course, is a very, very good option And then the Ursaluna over here, it's optimized. 140 HP investment is always optimized for the burn chip from the Flame Orb. And then 156 investment is just the second jump in the Adamant Nature. 132 special defense, that helps it live the what's that penguin thing that's escaping me? The Iron Bundle, yes, the Iron Bundle Hydro Pump. That's why that's there, and then the rest I just dumped it into like regular defense, right? Terra Water is also relatively nice to help you resist the Urshifu stuff. But yeah, I've also seen like Terra Normal for more facade damage. You know, that's also okay. It really just all depends on what you want your Terra to do on your Ursaluna. But I chose Water just for the Urshifu matchup. Okay, and then you know just from here like Grimmsnarl Poison, of course, is for like you know Flutter Mane, Moonblast stuff, and then Rillaboom, Terrafire, resist fire damage, and you know you don't get burned. So overall, a relatively bulky team. Requires a little bit more positional play, a little bit more in terms of like practice and getting the leads right, but other than that, it's a good team, and hopefully you enjoy it as well. Let's move on to rental number 3. All right, this is rental number 3. I would say this is the easiest one to play just because of how linear it is. You know, the goal is relatively simple if you just look at it. I mean, you have a couple modes here. You have the Trick Room mode, and then you have like a faster mode with the Lilligant. Hisuian Lilligant, by the way, with Terra Ghost, along with Focus Sash, and then the Torkoal. You know, you're still getting like after you Eruption plays, so you know that's always still there. Then you have the Sleep Powder shenanigans. Solar Blade in the Sun does a lot of damage just because Lilligant has a good stat. Then Close Combat, of course, your lone fighting move there. And then we already know what Torkoal does, obviously. Then you have like Indeedee Hatterene combinations with like, you know, just clicking Follow Me, clicking Trick Room, you know, then just spamming, you know, Dazzling Gleams, and then Psychic, of course. Life Orb Hatterene hurts a lot. Sometimes on these teams you see Armarouge. Actually, a lot of these teams you'll see Armarouge, but I took it out and I went a different direction this time around. I put the Iron Hands here just so that I can get a little bit more physical play on this. You know, just to get like potential Swords Dance plays with the Iron Hands, which is actually kind of fun if you're able to set it up. So, you know, you can do like Lilligant Iron Hands or like Indeedee Iron Hands just to like set up in their face, click Follow Me, then, you know, get the Trick Room up. And then from there you just sweep. Other than that, like Indeedee Hatterene, Torkoal, Glastrier, by the way, is a very standard Sword and Shield combination from back in like, you know, Series 7, Series 9. What you're able to do is, you know, they knock out the Indeedee, Hatterene clicks Trick Room, bring in Torkoal or Glastrier, and then just have him sweep. You know, the opponent may be able to stall out the Trick Room turns just because of how linear it is, but at the very end, you know, if you have so much pressure, then they're going to have a hard time stalling it out anyway. The Glastrier, of course, is an Assault Vest set here. You know, very, very hard to break. Heavy Slam to snipe Flutter Manes. Icicle Crash Stab. Stomping Tantrum, very good into stuff like Heatran and other Steel types and other things that don't want to take ground type coverage moves, like another Iron Hands, for example. And then, of course, Close Combat is very, very good there. But, you know, the Rocky Helmet on the Indeedee was something that I changed late. It used to be Psychic Seeds there just to get a special defense boost. But I found that, listen, like one way to beat, you know, teams like this is to, you know, use Chien-Pao, click Ice Spinner, then Dragonite and Urshifu are able to click their priority moves again. But by going for the Rocky Helmet, especially against like Chien-Pao, you're breaking the Sash, and same thing with the Dragonite. You can chip it and sometimes maybe even break Multiscale if they even have it. But breaking that Chien-Pao Sash and dealing like good damage is important, right? Because then you can just click Dazzling Gleam, and then you're actually okay there. And then from here, again, we already know what Iron Hands Terra Fire does. That's just so that you don't get burned. You know, we don't really have to worry about grass necessarily because, you know, we have the goggles to get around Amoonguss. You still have to worry about ground coverage, of course. You know, Ursaluna is a thing, but you have pretty good play into Ursaluna, I would say, with Lilligant and Glastrier, right? So, it's a very standard Trick Room team. Not much else I need to say. Let's just take a look at these EV spreads. Okay, so this is it. So, of course, our Indeedee is a bold nature just to give it a little bit more oomph in that physical defense. The Hatterene, again, optimized for Life Orb chip, a little bit more HP, and then just max special attack, of course, with the remaining getting dumped into defense. Torkoal, Quiet Nature, 252, 252, of course. Lilligant, again, another Focus Sash Mount with a 252, 252 spread. The Iron Hands just goes to the second bump there, 156. You know, we're going for Swords Dance, so that'll pretty much compensate for our lack of max adamant damage. Of course, I go max special defense here. And then the Glastrier, again, another good Pokemon here. You know, just max HP, you know, very hard to break, especially with the Assault Vest, and then hitting the jump with the 196 attack investment. All right, you know, very standard, very basic spreads. It's It's probably the easiest of the 5 to play. You know, it's the most linear. But, you know, for some of you like hard trick room plebs, here it is. You know, go for it. All right, this is probably my favorite of the 5, and this is our Zapdos team. So, you know, just think back to Series 9 when Zapdos was paired often with this Fire, Water, Grass card with Heatran, Rillaboom, and Urshifu, and then you had a Grimmsnarl and a Porygon 2. That was a very, very classic, famous Series 9 squad back in Sword and Shield in the Dynamax format. So we wanted to recreate that a little bit over here. You know, obviously there's no Porygon 2, and we didn't put Grimmsnarl here, so I could have just went like Grimmsnarl and like Cresselia, for example, but I wanted to take a different approach this time. Zapdos, you know, we made it very, very bulky this time around. Thunderbolt and Hurricane with Roost, so endgame recovery, really, really good on Zapdos. And I don't need to put Tailwind on the Zapdos, I'd rather have Protect, because the Tailwind is coming from the Tornadus that you see here. A little bit of a different Tornadus than the other one. This one, no Protect here, but you do still have the Covert Cloak and the Terra Ghost. But you have Rain Dance and Icy Wind, which is really good in a lot of different scenarios, because 1 is good into the mirror, and 2, the Rain Dance will allow the Zapdos to hit those Hurricanes, you know, because Hurricanes sometimes are a little bit iffy. And then at the same time, your Urshifu can also deal extra damage in the rain, which is really nice. And the Rillaboom, also being a grass type, you know, generally enjoys the rain, you know, reduce that incoming fire damage that might be, you know, resulting. The Heatran is more aggressive this time with the Life Orb set. You know, this one is back to Terra Grass, but Heat Wave, Flash Cannon, Earth Power, very, very standard Sword and Shield, you know, set there. You know, it's, you know, with the max Steel Spikes and the max Quakes, but obviously there's no Dynamax here. But it's pretty much the same Rillaboom as the other teams, and the Urshifu, same idea. The Fluttermane is back again. You know, this time, again, we're bringing back the sub Fluttermane just to help us a little bit more in some of those Trick Room matchups. But, you know, Urshifu, Rillaboom, you already know that kind of lead. Very, very good. Tornadus Zapdos is another good lead. In some of those Trick Room games, sometimes you could just do, like, Fluttermane leads with something like Heatran or Rillaboom, for example, especially with, like, Fake Out Pressure. And then, you know, just set up that sub in front of their face and just deal damage behind the sub and alternate your protects. The Rocky Helmet is, again, meant for the physical attackers. Think of, like, Urshifu that wants to, you know, get hit by that. Chanpals, Dragonites. These are all Pokemon that don't want to take a lot of that Rocky Helmet chip. It gets relatively difficult for them, and then you just roost whatever damage you take. We are a very bulky Zapdos. We'll show you that EV spread in a second, but this is how it works. You have the hyper offensive mode, you know, with Tailwind, and then from there, the Fire, Water, Grass core does a bunch of damage. We have good special attack damage here with Fluttermane and Zapdos and Heatran Life Orb, of course, while the physical stuff is carried by the Rillaboom and Urshifu. All right, let's look at the spreads here. Okay, so with this Zapdos, you're able to survive the Chanpal Ice Spinner, which is important because, you know, if you just drop to that, then it's not really worth it. So you might as well just invest and make it super bulky. The first bump in the Modest Nature is all you really need for, you know, 176 special attacks. That's okay. That's enough damage. We'll go with the chip every single turn. You know, Thunderbolt and Hurricane, they're going to do some good damage. A little bit of speed, you know, just to outspeed, you know, base 120s at the very least. Not base 120s, I'm sorry. I think we put this thing to like maybe 125 speed, right? You know, just under Tailwind, outspeeding the base, not the base 120s, but things that want to go for 120, because that'll outspeed Genies. The Tornado spread is the same spread as the other one, so if you want to know what that does, just look back to the first rental. Urshifu is 252. 252, you know, very standard set there. The Fluttermane is also the same exact spread there. You know, meant to outspeed the Genies because we put it to 181. You know, just to, you know, make sure we want to be faster than them. And of course, second bump in the Modest Nature and then survive the Sucker Punch and get some subs off. Rillaboom is the same spread. The Heatran Life Orb optimized, you know, with the 100 HP investment. Modest Nature 156 again. And then just enough speed, you know, just to outspeed a lot of these faster threats, especially under Tailwind. And then from here, the 36, I just had like leftover bulk EVs. You know, I didn't really know what to do for them. I wasn't really calculating for anything. So I just split them a little bit and just, you know, even them out, you know, just to get a little bit of bulk on the Heatran there, you know. So then from there, it's just a hard hitting, you know, Heatran Life Orb set there. But that's really all there is to this Zapdos team. So it's my favorite one. I like it a lot. I know someone else was using it earlier and he told me they got to like rank 156 on the ladder already. So that's all. That's how I know it works. So it's pretty good. All right, this will be the last and fifth rental. This is Galarian Moltres. This is also one of my favorites, but I think I like the Zapdos just slightly more. I like Moltres more than Zapdos though. But anyway, this is a Moltres with Tailwind, with Air Slash, Nasty Plot, Fire Wrath. Very, very good against Cresselia games, just because, you're a Dark type. Now, they can go Terra Fairy, but that's okay. You also have Terra Poison to counteract some of the Fairy stuff that you might run into. Landorus and Mungus are a very, very good pair, with the Moltres. I would call them a very, very good trio. Again, with the Moltres being weak to electric type attacks, Landorus is able to pivot in and swap next to the, swap into the Moltres slot for that. It can also Earthquake next to the Moltres. We don't have Earthquake here. I changed the set a little bit, at the last minute, just for certain matchups, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it does have U-turn pivot. It does have Rock Tomb, a little bit more speed control, able to also break Sash. So that's I put that there over Rock Slide, and the goggles there is of course to deter from the Amoonguss. Speaking of Amoonguss, we have an Amoonguss, so sometimes what you can do is put the Amoonguss next to Moltres as a good lead and try and get up that Tailwind. And then if the Moltres also takes chip damage, get into Berserk range, and then you could potentially just heal it back with the Pollen Puff, so you can keep getting Berserk again and again and again. And then they just have trouble removing it, right? So your Amoonguss is your Cleric here. Also gives you something for Trick Room stuff. You also have the Fluttermane for that. But yeah. The Iron Hands, also a pretty decent lead with Moltres. You're able to click Fake Out, set up a Nasty Plot, or click Fake Out, set up a Tailwind. Assault Vest Iron Hands is very, very strong, throughout Regulations, C. So it's also very good again in Regulation D. So I figured you might as well bring that back here. Fluttermane and Urshifu, what else needs to be said? You need another breaker on the team with your Urshifu with a Sash, might as well. And then Fluttermane is just, another good, strong special attacker. I wanted to put Cresselia in this slot, in the Fluttermane slot. I think I had it there originally. And then the Landorus was actually Earthquake Landorus. But because I swapped to the Fluttermane, I just changed the set on the Landorus, right? I felt like a little bit more speed control was needed here, with the Landorus clicking Rock Tomb. It's also a very bulky Landorus, might I add, so you'll see that spread in a second. But overall, I like how the team worked. Moltres was great in the end game, and then early game shenanigans, sometimes just like, Fluttermane and Amoonguss leads or Amoonguss Urshifu stuff is actually really, really good. But, overall, just depends on who do you want to be your end game closer. Do you want the Moltres or do you want the Fluttermane, right? But yeah, let's look at the EV spreads here. So the Moltres, again, has optimal HP EVs for the Citrus Berry. We went to the first jump in the Modest Nature. And you notice it doesn't have as much defense, and I put a lot of it in special defense. This is for the Moonblast Fluttermane. So without Terra, you can survive a Modest 116 Fluttermane Booster Energy Moonblast with 132 investment. So I went for that. I felt like that was important sometimes. And then, just put the rest in as speed. It comes to a 121 final stat, which is, again, outspeeding the 120s that want to outspeed the Genies after a +1, or in this case, a -1, which is what the Landorus is supposed to do here. Landorus also goes to 120, but I made the Moltres 121, whereas the Landorus is 120, so this way there's no speed tie. And then from there, it's again, a very bulky Landorus. You can see 212 HP. Just the first jump in the Adamant Nature, I didn't go 116 or 196. I just went to 36. I put a lot in special defense just because physically it's already like okay, because you have the Intimidate support here. Urshifu, of course, is just a Sash set. Iron Hands, it's the same set, just same EV spread as the one on the Glastrier team, just a different set. You're hitting the jump there and the Adamant Nature, your max special defense there for, Fluttermane stuff, and then you have a little bit of leftover EVs there for the HP and defense. Amoonguss Rocky Helmet Chip. Again, very, very standard Amoonguss set there. 0 speed, of course. You're hitting the jump in the Relaxed Nature, and then you just dump the rest in special defense there. I wanted to make it a physical, bulky Amoonguss, right? Just because of, Shenpao Dragonite stuff, as well as Urshifu. And then Fluttermane is, again, the same spread as the other Fluttermanes that we have on the other team, right? So that's pretty much it. I feel like it's a really cool Moltres team. You got Intimidate, you got Fake Out, you got Redirection, you got some speed control with Tailwind and Rock Tomb. You have pivoting potential with U-turn. You have Substitute, just to be able to set up sometimes, as well as Nasty Plot. So you got all the tools. You have Status Infliction also with the Amoonguss with Spore. So it can really help in position. But yeah, it's a really, really good Moltres team. I feel like it's one of the better ones I've seen. I know some of them have like Grimmsnarl and Sneasler Rillaboom stuff. I feel like that's okay too. But I just like this one, man. This one has been pretty good overall. But yeah, that's going to do it. So let me know which one of these 5 rentals you try out, and let me know what you're using so far in the Regulation D ladder. And if you're interested in team building for Regulation D, just like how we built these teams for our clients, feel free to sign up on the channel with the tier 3 sub. If you click the link in the video description below, or if you check the comment section, there is a pinned link to join the channel with the tier 3 sub. It's a team building sub perk. You're able to message me on Discord. We coordinate a time to meet and, you know, just get a call going. We build the team that you want around some archetype or some Pokemon that you want. We show you how to do the EV spreads. We go over different matchups, and then from there, we get you guys going, you know, within the Regulation D format with exactly what you want. All right, but check it out. That'll be it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out, and have a good one.